Hey everyone, it is the G4 Podcast Episode 2. We're back. This time around, we've got three hosts, of course, two of them returning. We've got Epic here, so
What's up?
and we got Tyler,
Yo,
and a new host this time around, just joining us. I don't know if he'll join us in the future, it's up to him, but Irius is joining us today.
If I don't get kicked off, maybe. Hello.
So today the three topics that we want to discuss about will be the Intel and AMD new releases, and kind of focus on a little bit of like the chiplet design technology. Iris has a little bit more information on that, but I've also seen a lot of it, so I kind of have an idea of what's going on. And then the other two topics will be, we'll talk about kind of the Windows 11, Windows 10 end of life, and kind of the future of operating systems with video games. And then the third topic that we'll discuss today will be about the kind of new updates and then new demos for Star Citizen. And honestly, I know there isn't much detail on here, but I will about that one. I will actually just kind of describe what I've seen in their little engine showcase, which is what I was looking at earlier. And I actually kind of recorded myself my own reactions to it, which I thought it was kind of interesting to do. I've never actually done that before, but to be honest, like I kind of want to be able to reflect a lot of those reactions back, and then have you guys kind of kind of digest it in a way that you think is right to give opinions through. So anyways, we'll get to those ones. So we'll start off right away with the Intel and AMD new releases. So this portion will probably focus more on Intel, because Intel's release currently has kind of a very negative impact on their brand. Now, I honestly, like, I can't lie to you and tell you that, we're just going to be easy on Intel and just fully critical. It's kind of, it's kind of Schadenfreude, right? Intel has taken a market leader in so long. AMD has been the underdog forever, and only recently has AMD started to get the public opinion and the public approval. And in all honesty, like, people are starting to realize year after year that you can't just keep buying a new motherboard and a new CPU every year, right? And this is kind of paramount to my kind of angle on this. Is I just want to start off with, if you don't know about the new Intel CPUs, let me explain it to you this way. So the minimum you probably know is most CPUs have a socket that they go inside of, right? And then you have, when you have a new CPU, sometimes it doesn't work with the current motherboard you have. That's usually what happens when you have a new Intel CPU. And the reason why I say that is because AMD has had socket support for almost 4 or 5 generations now. Like, I think AM4 supported like at least 4 or 5 generations before we got to AM5. And AM5 now supports a couple generations themselves too. Whereas in Intel, I think the maximum I remember, at least from like recent history, was maybe 2 generation support, and that's it. And after that, each and every single generation had a different socket. And it wasn't even a different physical socket, it was specifically a different socket in pretty much like the minute amount of I honestly, I'm not even sure what type of changes they make to it. It physically looks the same. Like, I can tell it, like, if I was able to look at a picture of those 2 different sockets side by side, I would think that they're exactly the same. Like, cuz I wouldn't know any better, right? I know just about enough of computer building to look at the numbers and search it up online and tell you if it works, right? Realistically, if somebody just passed me one of those CPUs and passed me one of those motherboards, I would say I don't know if it works, but like, it looks like it works. Like, it's like, the Lego piece fits here kind of thing. But in all reality, it won't work, because the different years means architecture of technology. So anyway, I'll let Epic continue from here.
Yeah. Saf was saying about the sockets. Intel obviously, as he was saying, Intel obviously changes their sockets of each new chipset generation. AMD, AMD has shown us that you can continue to support the same socket for years to come. Even after the AM5 socket came out recently, AMD is still releasing a new set of CPUs that support AM4's socket. How long are they, maybe this is maybe this is the last time they're gonna do another set for AM4, but the fact that they ended up doing another set of CPUs to support AM4 for like at least one last time is unheard of from Intel. And
Or unheard of for
flat
AMD, right?
no, I guess for both honestly, because I can't even think about Intel ever doing that, right? AMD
Yeah.
kind of like said, hey, we can do this because why not?
Yeah, and in all honesty, I just feel like, yes, has AMD done anti-consumer stuff before? Of course. They're corporations. They're not your
Yeah,
friends.
without
They
a
will do
doubt.
it. But at the same time, we have to call out when they do those things, and we have to reward the ones that don't. And that's how you send a message to, you know, that group of, like, that's how you make those changes. Like, you have to make sure you vote with your wallet in that way. So when you say, like, oh, AMD supporting us for this and this, let's put more into AMD, like, that's how you vote with it. And in all honesty, like,
Mhm.
this is also going to be really important for these people that are putting money into these companies. Now, again, I'm not saying of any economic advice. I don't care about stocks and any of that, so I have no stocks in either of these companies. The only thing I'm gonna say is that, like, people who are like trying to put money in these, like, I don't know how much they actually know about what these companies really think about them, right? But ultimately, like, I just think that, like, it's a bad idea to just assume the company's just gonna, learn about it over, like, one loss. Because especially look at Intel, like, they've taken this beating over and over, and they just don't realize what they're doing wrong.
Yeah. Um, this new lineup, especially with Intel that just came out recently. Their what is it like? It's like Series or something like that. It has a terrible naming scheme.
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
Ultra 200S series. That's what they call it.
that's what it's called. Oh my god! I just call it like 15 gen because it makes sense to me that way.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't understand why they would change the naming sequence. I mean, I guess, like, you can't say that it was. I mean, it was already confusing people because you had, it go from Intel, like, let's say my oldest processor was a 550 or i3 550, right? It went to i550 to, like, the second gen, third gen, which did 3000, fourth gen, fifth gen, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and those were all
It
thousands.
works up to
Then
like
it did
it works up to like
10,000.
10th gen, and
Yeah,
now
they
it's
did
like what the
10,000,
fuck?
which was like a huge number too. But, like, I was like, okay, fine, you could do that. But then they kind of did this thing where they went to, yeah, like, the 10,000, and then all of a sudden, once they got to 14,000, they ended up making this, which is a change of the name to Ultra 200. Yes, like, what's going on here? I don't really understand this.
I genuinely can't tell what they're doing now. It would have made sense. I was thinking about this, like, what would be a good naming scheme for like a new series of CPUs? I wouldn't mind if Intel said, all right, this is Intel Series 2, right? And then they'll start back from 1000, or if they like say, okay, fine, we won't restart our series like that. We'll prefix it with the year they came out. So say Intel Core i7 24 dash whatever, 25 dash whatever. So you know that like that's first two numbers is the year it came out.
Yeah, and that would actually make them easier to categorize, because like this is a very confusing SKU, like just in its in a nutshell. Like if you're looking at this, you've got Ultra 5 245 KF, right? Now, me being used to seeing those numbers and names for Intel, I know what this means. So it means 5, which is like an i5, right? And then you've got 245, which probably a lower end CPU. Again, this is a part that's confusing, because in older SKUs they would just do like, like say i7 60 i5 6500 and then i5 6600. And honestly, those numbers were kind of randomly picked. I never understood that either. Like, why are they
They
using
were, yeah.
that number specifically, like i7 6700? Like, I don't know, it made no sense to me. And then the KF, so I know what the F means. It means CPU that doesn't have the graphical component.
Friend zone.
So like,
I
yeah.
know the K is for unlocked, so I knew that much.
Yeah,
I
the
didn't know
K
what
is
F was.
unlocked. F is no video memory.
CPU.
So no
Okay.
eGPU in
No
the
GPU.
F version. So the F versions are kind of cheaper ones. I remember because they came out with those when they made the 9900. And I don't know. Like, I always thought that was kind of a weird decision. I guess it lets them sell more SKUs of the CPU, but I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing. It's like, I guess you could sell a non GPU version, but see, here's the issue that I have, right? I don't know if their plan is to have people buy the GPU memory version of the CPU, right? The one that has it, and have it paired with an Intel GPU. And to be honest, that's also another whole can of worms. It's like, like, okay, I'll be honest. Arc is doing a lot better than it did on launch. It's doing a lot better. It's starting to look like an okay idea for some budget gamers. It's not the worst. In all honesty, I'll put it this way. Let's say you don't have any good deals around your area for selling old GPUs, right? And you need something that kind of works, kind of new, should give you decent performance, and you don't need to go all the way up there in terms of performance and usability and all that. It might be okay, but it's really hard for me to recommend Arc GPU. So when we're talking about a GPU that's just barely recommendatable, and we've got CPUs here that are not even recommendatable, how are we supposed to marry these two options? Whereas on the AMD side of things, you've got a CPU that is 100% loved by most people. Like, you've got like the Ryzen lineup is like the amount of raving reviews that they get about how well they do. The Ryzen lineup does excellent. And then when you're looking at the flip side of AMD of the GPU side, the GPU side isn't that hated either. It does a pretty decent job. Granted, some driver issues, probably not going to be as strong as some of the NVIDIA cards and some of the things, but that's a whole other can of worms. The long story is, I'm trying to say, the marriage of the two different like CPU and GPU kind of componencies is way, way, way stronger on the AMD side over the Intel side. And the thing is that NVIDIA kind of just doesn't have that for themselves anyways, so they kind of just get left behind on because the thing is, okay, look, I've heard people say things like an NVIDIA CPU or something, but I just don't think that's gonna happen. When's the last time NVIDIA made a CPU? Like Tegra, I guess. Like, I don't know. Honestly.
I mean, that's technically more of like an SoC rather than just a CPU, but I could see the argument being technically a CPU, but it's I don't know.
Yeah, like,
I mean, I guess. Yeah.
It's not an in-house built CPU by NVIDIA. And to be honest, I don't think we'll ever see that. So I don't know. Nvidia, I think, will just do the best it can to siphon off both technologies. I don't know what Intel's one is called. I know that AMD just, I mean, I think it's just SMT, isn't it? Right? That's what the technology
Yeah,
is, right?
I think it. I don't remember
Simultaneous
what it's called.
multi-threading.
Yes.
Yeah, simultaneous multi-threading. Thank you. I was
Yeah.
like, is it simultaneous? Yeah.
Yeah, because it works with both the CPU and the GPU in tandem, right? So, like in my opinion, I just think that like the Intel couple that you can get, like an Intel CPU and GPU combo, is just not gonna be as good. And to be honest, one way I can tell you this is like if you check what people are doing for benchmarks, like even the test system that they use in Linus's video, which for some reason I don't have the test system on here, but who cares? The long story short is the test systems, uh they both like when I say they both, I mean they're the same system, they just kind of swapped out like the motherboard and CPU on them, right? They really use a 3090 in that system. So it just goes to show that
Mm.
they don't care about the SMT performance versus like between the two. And to be honest, as I think Epic said earlier, I believe it doesn't even have SMT. So you're looking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what Intel is doing now is they're now instead of like focusing on SMT as a whole, they're starting to like do performance cores and power efficient cores. So,
Yeah, and
um,
I don't know, man. I think what it
I
is you know what I think it is? I think Intel is trying to crash out based on what they're seeing from Apple. Like what it is so Apple came in and they made the M2, right? And the M2
uh-huh.
had a kind of similar design, right? Like where it's like a bunch of cores, but they were focused on specific things. Like the CPU was basically a set of like regular CPU cores and like some video cores, right? Something along that line. Um, so I think what it is Intel saw that and thought, huh, we could just split our CPU to just do things like that, right? Um,
Which technically isn't a bad thing, I'm gonna have to say.
yeah, it's not bad,
But
but the problem is it's really about the time in the oven that it takes, right? Like in my opinion, there's just no way these CPUs had been in the oven for long enough. That's what it is. Like they had
yeah,
not verified half the things that they're trying to claim, right? Sure, you might have good boost clocks and stuff, but I think the real thing comes in when you actually look at all the performance stats. Before we get there, there are two things that I want to mention real quick. Um, Intel focuses a lot on their use of Xe graphics cores. So as far as I understand, they are trying to get, like as I said, the same kind of thing as like the Apple way of doing things. So having like graphics cores inside the CPU, and they are increasing like their
hmm
level 3 and level 2 caches, which I mean, I presume is good to have. But again, you have to remember the more amount of that stuff you have, the more it's just gonna affect um your direct performance,
The
right?
duality of
Yeah, in reality, that's what it is, right? Like
no,
a CPU is all about how much you balance everything that you have in there, right? Like for example, there's a reason why you've got things like Threadrippers that are gonna get beat by like much less core CPUs, just because it like gaming performance and stuff, just because it's like you know what it is? It's like imagine like seeing a big huge race car, very heavy race car versus a light race car, or like a motorbike, that has like a powerful engine but is much lighter, right? It has less power but it's lighter so it can go faster. And in some ways it's kind of like that, except imagine Intel, instead of being like a power like a race car that's like super good and super powerful. It's like one that's just bulky and over bulked with, just too much engine and too much going on, that and you will see these graphs what I'm talking about, like how bad it is. So one of the first graphs that we have here is actually from Linus. They did the testing, but yeah, I can tell you right away that the performance difference is really night and day. We're talking about the Core Ultra 9 285K, which they plan on pricing that at $630 US. That is, in my opinion, that is actually
Mediocre.
like just way too high. $630 US is a really high price for a CPU that we're talking about is getting beat by, a 9950X, which is a $600 CPU. So $30 more for a lower performance CPU. This is Red Dead Redemption 2 performance. We're talking about, now, admittedly, it's like 9 frames difference, right? Average 9 frames difference is not the end of the world. But, like, when we're talking about 1080p, right? Like, I think that, honestly, like, we shouldn't be seeing worse performance on something that costs more. Not to mention, you need a new motherboard for the CPU. Imagine you're on AM5 right now. Like, okay, I'm on AM5, right? I could go and get the 9950X, right? I could go and get that, get it swapped out, and get the reap the performance rewards right now, as is, right? Whereas in someone who's trying to get the new Intel CPU, they have to go and, they have to get a new motherboard, the CPU itself, like if they're on Intel right now, if they're on the last generation of Intel, they gotta go get a whole new CPU motherboard and get worse performance, right? That's kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah, so it's like $600, and they have the right motherboards are getting expensive now, both on an Intel and AMD side of things. I have a criticism about the AMD motherboards, but
Yeah.
they're like getting to like 200 USD minimum now
Yeah,
for like a mid-range board. It's crazy.
That's the crazy thing too, is that I think the AMD motherboard manufacturers kind of noticed and they started hiking the price. Now I don't know if it's motherboard manufacturers or if it's AMD itself grabbing the profits of that, but I mean I would have to assume it's probably motherboard manufacturers because they actually make the board. But I mean that's hard for me to say, right? Because I don't know what share goes in when they work together to make that. So
Yeah.
then we've got Cyberpunk, which is a more widely played game, and you can definitely see this is where you really see the slaughter. You're seeing the Core Ultra 9 285K giving you 215 frames, 1080p, right? And it's losing to a much older AMD Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, which is making 259 frames. And that CPU could go for new for $480. A CPU that costs almost $200 less. $200 US less, by the way. Sorry, we live in Canada, so it's a little bit more for us. But that gap is huge. That is such a huge amount of money to be losing. Like, look, I kind of understand some things, but like this, if you're getting this CPU for gaming, it's just not it. This is the wrong CPU for gaming.
I think another big problem is that when they're making these cores, I think they're too broad with their target audience. Like they kind of want to match every single area a little bit, like a do-it-all CPU. But then it becomes mediocre in every area.
Yeah.
It's like the jack of all trades, but it just doesn't do it as well as a specialized core.
I feel like there should be a statement for that. Instead of jack of all trades, it's like the the mid of all trades. Something like
Mid of
that.
Ultra.
I mean, that's what it really is kind of like. But
I would like to interject and say that I feel there could be some lenience given towards this generation because I just read up that apparently they're transferring to a 2 nanometer process.
yeah, so that's
So that can, I feel that plus the jump
That
to
makes sense.
different socket, they probably have some stuff to work out to try and get it to work better.
and I
So
understand.
hopefully it
that,
goes the way
right?
of ARC and that it gets better with updates and stuff. But
Oh yeah, of course. Like I understand that. Like innovation is important, but innovation at the cost of consumer trust, and it additionally also just kind of like here's the thing, right? When you've got innovation, let's say you release let's say you work on something that's scientifically important, right? You usually want to work on something scientifically important to the point where it gets used by scientists and things like that, and then over time things get better, things change, and eventually you make a consumer model of something, right? So
Yeah.
I think the problem is they innovated, but then they didn't get to the point where it was ready for consumers, especially 2 nanometer, because
yeah,
yeah.
that's why I was going to agree with your earlier point. It's like it didn't spend enough time in the oven.
Yes, because when AMD came out with 7 nanometer, it was a complete bloodbath. Like, honestly, I kind of remember when that third gen of Ryzen, when it came out, and it beat Intel on every single thing. And honestly, it's still like that to this day.
It's still being Intel underneath CPU.
Yeah. Instructions per clock was the last thing Intel held the crown on, and it lost it that day. And to be honest, I think that this is what Intel is paying for, because they keep chasing these profits. All they're doing is sitting there being like, there's enough people out there that are just gonna see the blue box, and they remember they remember the sunshine and rainbows heydays of the 6th gen of Intel, where it was like all amazing, and AMD was in the dirt with the bulldozer, right? And the thing is that's what it that's what it's coming down to, is that people there's that heyday of the AMD being stuck with bulldozer in the dirt is no longer a reality, and people are realizing, people are waking up. It's truly a different world now, and Intel is banking really hard that those people are still going around being like, yo man, don't buy AMD because it's really slow and sucks and uses power. But that's almost 7 generations of CPU ago. Even
it is also interesting to sorry.
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say it is also interesting to look out. What are they fighting for right now? Because it's like AMD and Intel fighting. AMD's last release wasn't even that great either. It wasn't that big of an improvement or anything. There were lots of issues.
Oh
so
yeah.
Then it seems like Intel tried to rush this out. It's like, well, now you're just fighting mediocrity with mediocrity.
Well, I mean, the thing is, right, AMD, and this is another thing too, I personally think what AMD is doing is it's releasing a couple of things so there's options for people. Now, in all reality, because they're a corporation, I will say that I think that there's very little innovation between those new generations, but it's kind of one thing where it's like, on AMD's side it's somewhat mediocre or whatever, right? On Intel's side it's disastrous. That's what it is. To me,
It
that's
doesn't help with their the previous issues with, was it 13 gen?
Oh yeah, they had the I think it was the 13th and 14th gen where they were having
Microcode issues.
Microcode issues.
Yeah.
Oh god, those ones were so bad that I honestly think that Intel still hasn't recovered to this day from those issues, because they spent so much time even running towards their own motherboard manufacturers and blaming them. It's like,
That
oh,
might
man.
also contribute to this not being fully cooked, as you said.
Yeah,
They're
'cause
trying to cover their ass.
they're trying to cover their ass, and what it is, and I know exactly what it is they're chasing the quarterly profit margin. They want to reach that target goal for profits, but it's See, this is kind of the issue, right? I understand there are business profits that need to be made and things like that for quarterly earnings, but like I don't know how else to put it. Like if they don't focus on actually getting a better product out, they're never gonna hit those products, and it's just those margins, and it's just gonna get worse. And to be honest, this next graph, this is the one I really wanted to show. Like, oh man, this graph here. So I don't know if you guys saw this earlier. So it's got the power draw in Cinebench 2024, and you could see in that power draw that in the same thing that they did, so the same render, AMD's got about 80-ish watts of power usage through most of it, a couple dips, and just 2 dips in there, and that's about it, about 80 watts the whole time. And then you've got the Intel CPU, the new one, right? And this is going against the older AMD CPU, by the way. So this is the 7800X3D versus the Ultra 9 285K. And the Ultra 9 is using about 220, 30-ish watts. So 230-ish watts. Like it's spiking up and down between 20 and 30.
It's over the place. That's what I liked about AMD's 7800 XP. It's a lot more consistent with the power draw. It's a very consistent.
And the Intel,
and then also
go on.
I'm fairly certain Intel's point about removing multi-threading and stuff was better efficiency.
Yeah, and they didn't.
It's like if you look at this
It's
power draw,
crazy
it's
to think
like
about.
is that
Where's the efficiency?
Yeah, like this is kind of where I look at this and I say, Intel's just lying. Like they're just lying to your ass. There's just nothing else to it. This graph is embarrassing. We're looking at a graph where Intel's using double the power, more than double the power actually, right? It's using it more consistently, and it has some spikes down, but those spikes are so small and so minimal that they're just not negligible at all. So what I'm looking at here is like, yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know if there was like any scores between these two, like if they did it better or anything, but I guess that's not the point of this graph. The point is just the power draw, and you can just see that it's losing. It's directly losing. So yeah, that's not a good look.
And that fluctuation can't be good for the silicon, can it?
Oh yeah, of
Like,
course not.
How ragged that line is.
Like what that raggediness in the line means is like the CPU is basically like trying its best to like stabilize itself, but it's just needing more. I think what that line might be is think about what I said earlier about they increased the L2 and L3 cache. Now again, I'm not an expert on actual CPU architecture, okay, so if someone gets this right, please feel free to correct me. My theory is just that I think if you add too much L3 and L2 cache, right, you get a lot more of these things where the CPU is just trying to, shuffle through. Like imagine, you're given a lot of, cache memory, means you're given a lot of place to just, place down stuff in the meantime. But if that area is so big, then you're gonna spend a lot more time, like, shuffling through it. So I think that's probably what that is, but I don't know for a fact. So as we go down, we've got another CPU benchmark. So this was for Dragon's Dogma. It's just a game that looks like a lot of people have done benchmarks on, so I just wanted to see. Again, we've got a graph that's showing 7800 X3D. Wow, that CPU has been doing really well. It's at 110 average FPS, and the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K is doing 104 FPS. The same game. Now, is that a huge difference? No, it's about 6 FPS. But does that give you enough reason to believe that does that showcase that it's doing worse? Of course, right? That's the important thing. It's doing worse, and people are not people. Realistically, I think what it is there are some out there that might like what I'm trying to say. There's some people that I think really trust Intel's architecture and such. but like, I personally think that it's not really like something that you should be able to trust. Like, I think this is kind of the proof where, you know, this is what I would show to someone who is like blindly following Intel, that hey dude, you shouldn't invest this money on a company that's blatantly ripping you off. That's what I think. Personally, I think that.
Yeah, I think that between AMD and Intel, I think it's been a while since they've kind of pulled ahead. But previously, when Intel was ahead, you know, they're always like a step ahead at being consistent and releasing new products that work fairly well compared to AMD. And now that AMD's ahead, it feels like Intel is also struggling to figure out how they're supposed to beat AMD. Because now AMD is a step ahead, right?
Yep.
And it's just like Intel is kind of like scrambling. I think it's because they've been ahead so long that now that they're behind, they're really trying to figure out like what is going wrong, and I think because of that, they're just testing a lot of things without really kind of testing it before they release it. You know
Yeah,
what
they're
I mean? Like,
they're basically releasing prototypes.
yeah,
That's what
they're
it looks like.
releasing. Yeah, like they're looking for statistics. I'm pretty sure. Like, just get like what it might be like for their own research. You know.
But the numbers,
I
Mason,
don't
what do they
understand
mean?
why they would do that. Like, just like release something that works for the specific area that you're going for.
Like,
But
yeah, go on.
like I said before, like it's just like they're releasing CPUs that just kind of do a little bit of everything. But why? Why do you want to do a little bit of everything? Like, what's the main point of that?
Especially at
like-
that cost.
Yeah, and at that cost, like, you know, big companies are gonna go for their expensive cores because of its reliability. So why don't you focus on that, like performance and reliability, instead of, you know, making it an all-around?
So when I went through this CPU's kind of what's called the graphs that of the different things that it can do other than the gaming,
Yeah.
the only things that it does better than the AMD CPU's on was Blender renders, which that's a pretty like respectable thing to do better in, but again, it's only one video model editing software out of like a couple of the other ones. You know, you've got and then you've got Adobe Premiere, and then 7-zip compression. That's it. Oh, sorry, it wasn't compression. It was I believe the decompression.
Decompression?
Yeah. I'm just checking because I remember one of them. It was doing pretty well on one of them. That was it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was doing better for decompression. That's pretty much it, to be honest. Like, it's just like it doesn't have anything except for really one category, like sub video editing, and that's pretty much it. Sorry, my bad. Basically, I'm saying Blender renders and Adobe Premiere. One video
Yeah,
editing.
I'm not
one
saying
model
that
stuff.
I'm not saying that Intel is like completely behind in everything, but like
Yeah.
currently, like the majority are really going for AMD because of its first of all, performance per dollar. It's really incredible right now.
Oh yeah.
Like, Intel's nowhere close to what AMD is offering. And that's just got a lot of eyes on AMD right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, having like a powerful, juicy core for your gaming experience, like how can you beat that? And it works for rendering too, and like you know,
Editing and
all your
productivity.
editing, and yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, so one of the things I probably sent you guys, this one is from Statista. which looks at the distribution of Intel and AMD CPUs worldwide. And you'll probably see that, you know, through 2012 to 2024, it's got a graph, and the closest that the distribution was obviously around 2021. So that was around the release of, I think, Zen 3, I think. So there's probably the Ryzen 5000 series. Kind of makes sense. That was probably the first time that, you know, AMD really peaked, really got you know, a good hand against the Intel CPUs worldwide. Intel did take it back, mainly because I think the reason why they took back some of the CPU share is because they ended up probably releasing a couple of other SKUs around that time. So probably, you know, server CPUs, laptops, things like that. But you could definitely see in the graph that after 2021, it's been a really, really close race. Like, it's been, you know, we're talking about the gap has definitely narrowed. And honestly, this trend I think is gonna go so much closer, and it will intersect at one point. I think it will intersect at the point when you know, the point when enough people have finally gotten tired of, you know, Intel doing this year after year to them, and, you know, when enough people have realized that AMD is not exactly the same company it was when, you know, it was down in the dirt with Bulldozer. So that, like, I think from this graph I could see the difference, because, like, yes, you could see, like, 2016, that's when I bought my 6600K. That was when it was really wide. That was back when, you know, Intel was winning. But you could see the major drop at 2019. That was Zen 2. That was when they released the Ryzen 3000. It was a meteoric release. It really was like a whole new chapter for AMD.
History. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why, like, if you look at hardware share, yeah, Intel is still beating AMD in the hardware share in there, also in Steam. Like, if you look at PC processor usage by manufacturer, AMD is still at 34% after 65 of Intel, but 34 is a pretty big amount, and it's only going up from here. And just to state the facts, like, most of the people who have those CPUs are enjoying better performance overall, right? So we're looking at, like, high-end PC users are just getting AMD CPUs, and Intel is a very specific set of PC users that are getting it. But I think most day-to-day users are going to go for the AMD one, because guess what? The motherboard options, the fact that you could, you know, get an AMD CPU now with the AMD motherboard and get a new one and not have to change your motherboard. That's the biggest deal. That's one of the reasons why that 34 exists now. In all honesty, like, this is going to change a lot. Like, we're gonna start seeing, you know, we might start seeing the number, you know, like 50. Like, we might start seeing 50%, not 50%, but we'll see like 55% of Intel soon if they don't turn these things around. And I don't know if they'll turn it around, because it's really hard to say. Like, all these graphs, all they're telling me right now is Intel clearly is in a spiral. They don't know what they're doing. They're releasing products that ultimately are not helping anyone. They're helping, like, a very small, minute amount of people who are, you know, maybe doing some Adobe Premiere and some Blender, maybe, but it's a very small amount of performance increase. Just comparatively, I just don't think it's worth it. So,
And plus the energy
Wow.
efficiency. Ew.
yeah,
Ew.
it's not looking good. It's too much. So, like, I think the future of CPUs is, look, we're probably going to get another maybe release from AMD. Now, I don't know too much about the new AMD releases. I've heard they've been a little rocky, but they haven't been bad. They're doing a pretty good job. It's just, as mentioned earlier, it's a mediocre AMD release. it's not really that great, but it's a heck of a lot better of a deal than the Intel release. And not to mention the fact that if you say you had the first generation of AM5 of CPUs, you could just swap out that CPU with the newest one, and you'll get a pretty hefty performance boost, and you won't have to swap out a motherboard. And I think that's actually like a really big win on AMD's side. Like they really know what they're doing about this. So my notes list for Intel is number 1, what they should do, focus on a new what's it called? SKU, new prototype, get it to a better performance efficiency, right? Number 2, make sure you get better gaming performance. Number 3, the next SKU should be able to use the same socket. If you can't do that, then we're gonna have some big problems. Because if we need to do this every single year, where we're talking about, oh, Intel released another motherboard socket, oh man, it's getting so old. It's been about 5 or 6 Intel generations. We can't have this happen every single year. I get it. Some people were pissed when AMD released the AM5 socket, and I thought that was truly a little annoying. But hey, they at least gave us 3 or 4 generations.
Also, to be fair, it went from PGA to LGA, which is a big transition.
Yeah.
I wasn't too mad about it because they supported AM4 for like 8 years. I was like, I guess it's time.
Yeah, like they gave us a lot of time. I think it was fair. Like 8 years is a long time. I'm not, again, I'll be honest, like it does make me sound like I have like some sort of vested interest. I'm like too biased on AMD, but I think in all reality, it's just, it's hard for me to give Intel that leniency. Like the leniency that I'm giving AMD, because Intel just haven't given us a single crumb of that leniency for years.
I don't want to sound
13th and 14th all used LGA 1700.
Yeah, I think that's
they support the same chips,
updates and stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm like trash talking Intel right now, but like they really need to just adapt and like reach out for help. they need to find somebody who knows.
Honestly, one of the things they could do, is they could ask Nvidia about some things. Hold on. So Brock, welcome into the G4 podcast. So you've got a chance to read the material, I'm sure. So we are currently still on the Intel versus AMD, the new releases. And we just kind of went over a whole bunch of different things. So power draw, chips and design, a couple of things already. But one of the things that we're kind of talking about right now is, what can Intel do to fix their image? What can they do to fix this next SKU of CPU design? And one of the things that Tyler brought up is maybe they need to ask someone. And in all reality, you know what? This is probably one of the ways that they could end up changing the market, is if they figure out how they can work with Nvidia to really work on some technologies that might be able to get them a better footing. But the only issue with that is that they already made their own GPU set, and the couples that come from Intel GPU and CPU pairings are not as good as AMD GPU and CPU pairings. So it's not something that I see as a like a good option. So I'm not really sure what else they could do. Like there are other things, like I mean, what would be truly the dark side is if they went to Apple for help. That would truly be the dark side.
Dude, that'd be crazy.
I think that would really, really rock the market. I don't know how that would look. I can't tell you.
I was gonna say, considering Apple basically said "screw you" to Intel.
Yeah, exactly.
They went
like,
over.
how are they gonna come back, come crawling back, be like, please, we want help with next chipset? Like, I don't know, man. I really don't know what they're gonna do. All I can see from here is this is a giant that has dominated the market for so long. And it's like an AT&T right? That's got fucking wires all around its feet and it's falling. That's what it is like. It really is. It's really falling because there is like it has no hope of figuring out how it's going to balance itself. It just doesn't know because of the
Like,
fact that I think what it is as we discussed earlier, like there's no I don't think they have a focus on what they need to do. They just all their focus is make the profits needed with whatever we have. And I think if they keep going that direction, if the leadership allows them to go to that direction, then it's never gonna get better.
for what I think is for the three main points that I'm gonna make is they need to attract more people. Like they don't necessarily need better performance, but it needs to be consistent, and they need to attract more people with a better affordability. Um, like if they can't release their CPUs with affordability in mind, the majority of their customer base is just not going to buy it. Like their target audience is who again? You know what I mean?
Like the last person I know that directly bought an Intel CPU is in the call with me right now. Brock,
Oh yeah.
you were the last person that I know that has bought an Intel CPU. Because everyone that I know, every single person I know, has bought a Ryzen. And I think there is a clear reason why in the tech culture at least. Like
Yeah.
it has to do with how AMD has been performing for the last couple generations.
And
And
it's such a good price too.
It
so
is.
so yeah, like again, I'm not gonna shame you on buying it, of course.
Oh, no,
That's not my
for sure.
point. My point is more to show just like you know when you've got a situation like this, like especially for Brock right now, who has an Intel, what is it, 12th gen?
So I have a i7 12700K. Mind you, I purchased that at full price back in pretty much on release. I think that had to be. I think I paid at least. I have to look this up, but I paid a pretty penny for it. Under the impression that I wouldn't have that. Again, I didn't. There was no news of 13th or 14th gen. That this was the best for bang for the buck instead of going for like i9 and something bigger that I couldn't really keep cool. This at the time that I purchased it, this was
you-
supposed to be future proof, heavier.
Yeah, you're looking for the longevity.
So I'm just gonna look this up.
And I remember I think the reason why you kind of went for this one is because you went more for a gaming focused CPU than like a productivity one, and
Yep.
I think Intel did take back the IPC crown around this time from what I remember, so it was doing better in like some games and stuff that were all like single threaded and things like that.
Yeah. So here we go. So I'm just pulling up everything now. So back in 2021, when I purchased this CPU, it was around $450. That's the recommended sales price. I'm just going off that because I'm fairly certain I paid around that range. It has 12 total cores. Let's see, and it can again max turbo frequency is up to 5 gigahertz. Mind you, I run this thing at I think 4.8, 4.9 with overclocking it, and it's fairly stable. I haven't run into any CPU issues specifically, knock on wood. And again, the reason I personally stuck with Intel was, for the longest time, Team Blue, that was the way to go. Their marketing has always been directed towards, gamer. And with my knowledge, I was like, you know what? I've always been with Intel. I've always found their products to work well in my favor. And there was nothing else I think I could really change. Everything about their naming, for me, again, was easy to understand. And it works. But the majority of manufacturers, again, for that time and before, everything was oriented towards Intel motherboards, Intel chipsets. Everything was Intel. So after that, mind you, AMD had already been on the rise, coming out with better and better chips.
No pun intended.
Now that I look at it, and I'm like thinking about maybe in the next couple years upgrading. I'm like, you know what? It's not. It's worth it just to go with AMD. If I I could buy an i9, let's say, I don't know what their highest one for the 12th gen is.
Oh,
It would,
you-
and,
oh yeah, actually,
and
yeah.
and it would still be outperformed by, again, I'd have to look this up,
An
but
older AMD CPU could
older
outperform it, yeah.
which says something, because I was thinking of recently, I was like, oh, I'm just going to upgrade to 99, get a couple extra cores, maybe do a little bit of overclocking, and then I looked at AMD and I'm like, oh, it's just worth it to buy just go Team Red at this point. Mind you, I've been a hardcore Intel fan since I can remember because it worked.
Yeah, so
But-
like that's another thing too, is that like I only hear, like, every time I've talked to anyone who's ended up buying Intel around these time periods is usually because they haven't really like talked to many of the other people who are more into the actual tech sphere. Like Brock, as far as I understand, was more kind of like he wasn't very deep into the tech field. He only knew some things, right? So he just kind of went with whatever was out there and made his own opinion on it, which is fine, which is the right thing to do. But I feel like when anyone asks me for recommendations, it's almost always going to be AMD. And it's not just because, like, again, of course there's going to be bias. I can't remove bias, but what I can definitely tell you is that I just go off of statistics, and the statistics say that AMD is going to give you that good performance for gaming and good performance for the productivity. And right now, these current Intel CPUs, they're not going to give you either. Like that's the cold, hard, and sad truth is you won't get either gaming performance or productivity performance out of this. So for that reason, I just cannot recommend the newest gen. And I know for a fact, as Brock just said, if he was to want this to keep the same motherboard, he'd have to go for the the i9 or whatever of that generation, versus if he wanted to get the newest Intel thing, he would. I mean, I don't know. He'd get a better performance than what he has, but he would ultimately have to get a new motherboard. So it's like, why get a new motherboard? We could just go to Red Team. Sure, you might have to pay more for a motherboard on the Red Team, but you're going to be paying less for the CPU there. Plus, you could get those CPUs cheaper.
And that's the thing too. It's really like So I'm just looking at some prices now. If I wanted to right now, I'm just looking at Newegg. An i9 12900K processor is about $389. Sometimes it's a little bit. Some places it looks a little bit cheaper. But mind you, it's funny that I look at that and I go, wow, I compare. That's about as much as I paid for my i7 when it came out. Which when I see that, as someone again who has high, I like Intel, I see that as really crummy brand integrity. That after again not very long, what was considered to be a very high-end product within the last couple of years is now priced as one of their mid-tier products. And, I'm looking at the AMD stuff. And I'm like, wow, these Ryzen chips are just better.
They're better and cheaper. That's why
they're better. They're cheaper. The performance is just better. And I'm like, do I go out, spend a couple $100 and then attempt to cool my new i9, or do I just rebuild and have better performance?
Yeah.
So
does anyone else have anything else they want to add about the Intel AMD future of CPU chipsets? Sorry, Brock, you've got a bit of wind coming through.
He went through a hurricane.
Sorry, that's my fan going off.
Honestly, I was gonna say this earlier. I think the way Intel keeps going down this route, I think Qualcomm, someone who doesn't even make desktop CPUs, right?
Yeah.
They make mobile CPUs, right, for like phones and shit.
They
Or for
started on
like
laptop,
embedded
but
devices.
I heard it wasn't going
Dude,
well.
they would probably have a better chance of taking over Intel.
Yeah, I think
Like,
Qualcomm and Apple now being kind of in the circle now. They're not going to be, obviously you're never going to go to like, okay, it would be crazy if you went to the store now and the next day, like, how now we see Intel GPU, like, no joke there, Like, imagine we go to the store and now we've got a
Apple GPUs.
Qualcomm desktop CPU, right? And not only that, but imagine. Okay, I don't think Apple would ever do this, but imagine you see like a Mac, like an M2 CPU that you install on your desktop. Just the awkwardness of that would just that would be so weird. I don't think that would ever happen. I think more likely the Qualcomm story would happen, but oh man, that would and the Nvidia CPU would never happen either. Like I just don't think that would happen. But you know what, the Qualcomm one, I want to see if that comes true. Honestly, it would be really funny because imagine if there's actually a third player in the CPU market, a true third player.
I don't know too much about the industry, if I'm being honest, but now that there's like so many competitors like joining the game, it's kind of exciting to see what'll happen next.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of help you understand a little bit because like Qualcomm, I don't know if you know what Qualcomm is, but I'll explain this. Like, you know, your cell phones and things like that. Usually, most cell phones, except for Apple ones, are all powered by Qualcomm CPUs.
I've heard of
so yeah, so they do this the phones and tablets and things like that. So that's kind of their focus, and that's why I think like they're coming close to now making laptops from what I'm hearing, and then the next step after that, the next big step is desktop, and that's really again. It's gonna depend because there's only so much chip manufacturing facilities in the world. It's really hard to make chips. Like if you've ever seen a chip manufacturing process, it is so in depth. It's so crazy how in depth it is. Honestly, we're just kind of a bunch of gamers, kind of just surface level skimming through what we're seeing. But like, and the other thing too is again. This is not us saying like, oh, we could do a better job at making Intel CPUs. Of course not. I would not want to be working for. Okay, first of all, I wouldn't want to be working for Intel because like, I don't have the knowledge of any CPU stuff for that. But at least in a strategic vision, I'm like, here's what I think might help. Like, look at what AMD is doing for consumers. Try and focus on consumers. Then you'll get something out of it. That's just what I think. So, anyway, anything else CPU wise? Anyone want to say?
I think when you were talking about the bringing up the new Mac Mini, I was thinking of something really interesting about that. I think Intel should, again, as someone who's super anti-Apple, I don't like their products. I just true Apple hater. I think they've really solidified themselves with their new Mac Mini and the I believe it's the M4 chip, and the price with the new Mac Mini being about $600. Mind you, compare the 10 cores, the 10 CPU and GPU cores to let's say a machine with a low-end Intel chip. I don't believe there's anything, as far as I know, that would compare to the this new Mac Mini for what you get for the price. And I really think Intel should take a page from Apple's book and be like, hey, if Apple, their own manufacturer, mind you, they separated from Intel way some time ago. If they look at that and go, you know what, maybe we need to start working towards actually bettering our products for the for gamers or people who are buying things like the Mac Minis, like businesses. I really think if they actually took the time, they could really improve their products, and they would not be crap. Just plain and simple.
I know the exact moment where Intel and Apple divorced. It was the exact moment was when they built that i9 Mac. It was the worst laptop in cooling performance in like probably the history of like laptops of that fucking price point. Wow. Like I've never heard of a laptop that was so bad at cooling that they basically like I heard tech reviewers just straight up tell me like this is the worst product in terms of cooling. Like there's no point of getting the i9 one. The i9 one was getting thermal throttled to the point where you just like you're better off using the i7 model. It was just doing better because like it you don't put in honestly like at this even to this day I'm even like gonna go off on a limb and say honestly, don't get an i9 or even a Ryzen 9 for a laptop. It's just not worth it. If you get a laptop, you get, I don't know, one tier lower. Get a Ryzen 7 or something. It will do the job. It will be fine. There's,
What?
yeah.
And I might add on to that point as well. You know, my laptop runs a Ryzen 5 something and like a 20 series GPU. I don't remember, but after, you know, again, that's my first Ryzen chip I've ever used integrated on a laptop. It has been nothing but incredible performance, and it runs great. It doesn't overheat like there's no tomorrow, and I don't understand the point of buying a laptop with a higher end chip if all it's going to do is throttle itself into the ground. You know, I again, that's just where I stand with that. But again, going from Intel to Ryzen chip on, you know, my laptops, I'm like, wow, this runs cooler. It's more efficient. It's better.
I think
So
laptop
that's-
manufacturers have definitely like caught on, and
Yeah.
I feel like some of them have noticed that their like 9 series lineups, so i9s and Ryzen 9s, are basically like fads just to catch like, you know, uninformed buyers to go and be like, oh, this is the best, most powerful laptop in the lineup. We're gonna get that, and then, you know, end up getting a very subpar, you know, experience because their laptops are running basically at full heat all the time, and you're like that. See, this is the problem, right? Like, while I've never had really a huge problem with people wanting to have laptops for gaming and things like that, and I remember it back when I used to frequent PCMR, they used to talk about how, like, you know, laptop gaming was a mistake and you shouldn't get a laptop for gaming. And in all honesty, it's like yes and no. It's like, yes, get a laptop if you really want to play certain games, high quality games, whatever, but please, please, please get something to cool it and understand that it's not going to be easy to lug it around. You have to plug it in. It's a mobile workstation. That's what it is. It's not
I
the
agree.
same as, like, if you're doing gaming and stuff, it has to become a mobile workstation. There's no other way. Or at that point nowadays, the better option is go to a Steam Deck. Whereas in, you know, if you are looking just to do productivity, you know, get something lighter. I'm not gonna say Chromebooks because Chromebooks are kind of ass in my opinion. I mean, I've seen improvements, but I just
Those are meant for
can't recommend
skulls, dude. Those are meant for skulls.
it. I remember.
Honestly, like if you want productivity gaming, just go AMD. Like don't even think about Bluetooth.
I'm just putting out for laptops. Like, Chromebooks are an option that people still kind of float towards, and honestly, they've kind of been a little all over the place. Anyways, anything else anyone want to add?
I think that's
CPU
everything
wise,
for me.
okay, we can move on to the next topic then.
All I want to say is,
Yep.
until release new heaters just in time for winter.
Yeah. Oh, see, the thing is, I already use my current 7950 X3D as a heater when you know, I just want to open up some Minecraft and I can heat up my entire basement easily.
Dude, that's what I'm doing with my old ass i5 6600K that I still use. I'm trying to like use it as a heater right now. It's
Yeah.
cold.
If you guys want to talk about heating up a room, I am currently playing Fortnite with my my i7 and my 3080 Ti. I am boiling right now.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, can I come over? I'm cool as hell.
Well, the last Intel CPU I had was a 7700K.
Wow.
Oh wow, that's a while ago. Yeah, mine was also 60. Well, I think Epic literally has my CPU. Like, I mailed it to him. So
Dude, I'm still owning it. Don't worry. For like
Yeah.
nearly how many years now?
yeah, it at this point it's like I already have like Ryzen's in my lineup of scrap computers, which is kind of crazy. Like, that's how things are. Okay.
Send it back to you so you can put it on display.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna put it in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna honestly, anything of that power, it's probably gonna get used up until it dies. I mean, I got bored 6th gen CPUs, dude. I have a 6th gen CPU that's like sitting inside of like a thing just to swap it out with another one that isn't working. That's why I gotta do that. I hate replacing CPU sometimes because I just hate dealing with the silver surfer fluid. Anyways, all right. So, the next topic is Windows 11. So, as some people might know, Windows 11 has kind of started like taking over our workplace. Some of us have gotten forced into Windows 11. Tyler, for example. Some of us have no choice but to use it. Me, for my work computer. And some of us have outright refused to upgrade to Windows 11. I mean, me as well, for my
Same
regular
here.
computers, and Epic and Brock. So, I'll put it this way, right? Windows
What
11...
about me?
Oh, sorry, I forgot. What did you say you did?
I'm the devil in the room. I actively accepted Windows.
Yes, so you were the
You
only one who
monster! I can't be
volunteered.
friends with you anymore.
Yeah, so Iris is the only one who has openly taken the embrace of Windows 11 to himself. So, I think that because of we have all these different takes on Windows 11, I guess we'll start with the person that had no choice but to update to Windows 11. We'll start with the bad.
Hello.
Okay, so Tyler, how was that
Uh,
experience?
It it's really weird because like it didn't give me a notification, either that or I didn't see it. But I just turned my PC off when I went to bed. I woke up the next day, I clicked the power button on my computer, and it just auto updated, and it hit me with the boot up screen. I was like, what's going on?
Rip.
It's like I have to sign into Windows again. What's going on? So I loaded in, and it just completely updated to Windows 11. I was so confused. I was like, I didn't really like get any notification about this. So
Yeah, it didn't consent you to upgrade, right? Just
yep,
did it, right?
it
Yeah,
just did it
so-
automatically, and I didn't. I like I said, if it gave me a notification, I did not see it, and it just auto updated. Like
It's
it
very
didn't give me an
unfortunate.
option to kind of like push it back or like even just delay it. You know what I mean? Just like
Mm.
if you're gonna force the update, like I'm okay with that. Give me some time to kind of like think about the decision. Um, it's like I don't know. Yeah, I just got thrown into the mix. So to be honest, my biggest issues are just learning it now. I gotta relearn everything that I already knew about Windows. So UI changes, kind of like have it. They have ups and downs. Like I feel like it takes longer to boot now for some reason.
Yeah.
So like an extra like 5-10 seconds, like it's not too bad. But
I mean, like that. It's kind of funny because I remember when people used to like really focus on boot times. Now, for me, as someone who just has a multitude of issues with booting for some stupid fucking reason, I basically have stopped caring about boot times. But I do definitely do understand when someone's like, "Hey, my computer's taking like 30 more seconds to boot," and I'm like, "Yeah, I feel that."
I knew something was up the moment I loaded to my desktop and I saw the the taskbar in the center of the screen, and I'm like, "Excuse me, am I on an Apple right now?"
Yeah, it's such a like
So-
weird look.
So like, I don't know. It's just why move it? Why change that?
Yeah,
It's
if
just
it ain't broke, why try?
I know
fixing
it's such a minor thing, but like it was literally like perfect the way it was for the people who
It-
use Windows.
it? Yeah.
And
It's funny, is I
It's
have my
ki-
taskbar centered on Windows 10 because I used to be on an ultra wide, right? So I didn't like to look all the way to my left to look at my taskbar, so I was like, just center it so I can see it.
Yeah, and me, I actually did have something like that in the past, and nowadays I just do taskbar on every window, mainly because all my windows are different sizes and stuff now. Like I used to have,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I remember when I used to have all three of the same monitor, and that was a while ago, but that was the only time I remember where, you know, I had something like that where I would have like one taskbar. But yeah, Windows 11. I think I should be okay to say my opinion
Oh
now.
yeah, I remember too.
Yeah, go on.
During the update process, like it sent you through the screen of like why the update is happening, and like you have to accept a bunch of their like
Oh, I know what you're
privacy
talking about.
plans,
Yeah, it's
right?
a whole bunch
So
of
Oh
like.
yeah.
now they're collecting even more data from me, which I'm concerned about.
And then they're also
You play
asking for
Fortnite, they're
AI.
already collecting your data.
So actually, I want to add to the Windows 11. So I actually have a computer in this house that uses Windows 11.
Okay.
So I built a computer for my sister. Maybe I don't know how long ago that was now, but recent enough that I got her a real copy of Windows 11. Unfortunately.
I know
Um,
why too. You can continue to worry.
Yeah, so I built the computer and I'm like, all right, I've installed Windows a billion times. This is too hard. And the first issue I ran into was that now it requires an internet connection and you have to create a Microsoft. I don't know what
Yeah,
it's.
so Microsoft account.
You have to
There,
create a mic.
so I don't know if you can. There is a way to dodge it, I've heard, but yes,
Yeah.
you technically do.
So I did end up finding a way to dodge it, but that was the problem. So let's say my sister got this, she built it herself. Um, mind you, there would have been no way to do this. So I had to basically go through the command prompt and bypass all of the Microsoft crap, and then finally, once you get into it, then I have to go install their Wi-Fi drivers, and then it connects to the internet. But that was the biggest issue I had was that if the average person was doing this, they would have no way to get around that without knowing. Like, oh, I guess I have to use a Microsoft account. Oh, I have to submit all this personal information to use this new operating system. You do not. You do not. You can get around it using the command prompt. It's a little more invasive, but it can be done. And I think it's it's a very gross tactic of Microsoft to all of a sudden, after all these years, say, you know what, you need to have a Microsoft Live or whatever it is account. You need to give us this information. You need to accept all these very, very vague terms about
Stuff
collecting
too.
data, and it makes me very uncomfortable. Um, so my experience with it is, it looks like, she hasn't complained about it. She just uses Windows, no problem. But for me, I look at it and go, wow, this is really a really nasty, pushy, business tactic. I've always been kind of against getting the newest operating system. It took me a while to get off Windows 7.
Yeah, and
No, I
I
feel that.
and
I
I
can
mean
feel
I
that.
felt it too because I was like, you know, I got off of Windows 7 just because there was support issues that I had specifically with Windows 7 at some
Yeah.
point, and to be honest, at that time, like, you know, the Windows 10 upgrade was free, and I was like, well, you know what, I can't say no to free. I will say that while I can't endorse piracy and things like that, you know, Windows 7 did have a weird thing where, you know, if you had a pirated copies of Windows 7 and you upgraded to Windows 10, you actually got a legitimate copy out of it, which was really weird. So that's something that I noticed earlier that happened. Now, the thing is with Windows 11, you know, they are basically I think in some cases they're actually asking you to just straight up buy Windows 11. I don't know how much of that is true. I think for a lot of people they could just upgrade, but like, yeah, like you know, when you are um like, I really liked that about Windows 7. At least they gave you a pathway to just have a legit copy now from now on kind of thing. But now it's
Mhm.
like, now it's just really like pushy and whatnot, you know, like where it's like, oh, you need to upgrade to Windows 11, you need to buy Windows 11. And
Right.
as Windows 10 is, and they're putting the end of life on Windows 10, and this is the main scariest thing about all this is that, you know, while our migration to Windows 7 was like a little more from Windows 7, the migration I felt like was more modest. Like
Yep.
this migration is gonna have so much more hitches to it, mainly because like we just got that migration not too long ago. Like I know it was a little while ago, but it really didn't feel like it was that long ago. Especially considering the fact that like, you know, people migrated from XP to 7, and like, yeah, that was one hell of a process.
Or even, you know, like the Windows 8 to 10 was a really big deal as well.
Yeah.
That's when I feel, again, I love Windows 10, but at the time, it to me it felt like that was the start of where they started to get pushy and being like, no, you need to upgrade and stop using our products, our older products.
It's so crazy. Windows 8 was like such a weird operating system. Like
Yeah.
I remember because I did use it. I actually I was the devil in the room for Windows 8. And the reason why was because at the time, you know, I wanted to just see what was new, and I wanted just a piece of something that was different, right?
Yeah.
And in all reality, I was still a big avid supporter of Windows 7. It's just I wanted to know what things would come through. And when I got into Windows 8, like I did start getting settled into it. Like you know, I even kind of started using like the new Windows 8 start menu and everything. But it was funny because Windows 8 was such a like transitional operating system. Like the gap between Windows 7 to 8 to 10 was like so small that
Yeah.
like, you know, that's why we always say 7 to 10.
The biggest issue that I had with the upgrade is like, okay, so I'm okay with it now because I'm kind of like understanding it a bit, but like even still, there's a few things that, first of all, the taskbar. Like I can't get over the taskbar being in the middle. I'm so used to it being on the left, and
Were you able to change it
just-
You
back?
can change that.
you can change it. Okay, I didn't know that. See,
Yeah. See,
and like
and you'll
unless
learn a
I
lot of these
searched
things,
it up,
you know.
like I would never know. Like they don't give me like any like help. No rundown of the like what you have to do or like what you can do. I mean to say, when you first load up on Windows 11, it's just like it drops you in the void. Like here you are. Here's your desktop. There's no like like help or anything like, and it just kind of forces you to search things up on your own, figure it all out. I feel like some of that could have been like told to you right at the start, or at least like showing you how you could like at least figure things out on your own. Like if nobody like if I didn't even know that it existed, I wouldn't have any reason to search it up. Like I couldn't search it up because I don't know what it is. And yeah, there's just a lot of unknowns for me in Windows 11.
Yeah, I think for like the end user, the not the power user, but like the, you know, the user that doesn't really have like the deepest understanding of every computer, like every operating system component, is definitely going to get really confused by this kind of upgrade. There's a lot of things that they're changing. There's a lot of things that they haven't fully removed, but they're trying to like clean out for no reason, in my opinion. Like they still have it. Like control panel still exists. You know, all the different things in the control panel they use, you can still find them. I think that's one of the funniest things is that like, because I had to get Windows 11 for work, right? I can tell you right now that most of the things I did in Windows 10, they're still there. You just have to dig around a little more. Like you gotta
I
go
will
to
say, I
control
think I
panel.
did see a headline that said something about they're removing the control panel and they're incorporating something else.
The settings, like
Yeah.
that settings tab, which it's so awful. At least the one
Right.
thing I can give it a little bit of credit for is at least they're kind of working on the UI a little bit just to make it a little nicer than
Oh,
the
yeah,
Windows
speaking
10
of
UI.
UI, all the shortcuts now have an icon on them.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
like, I have to learn these icons now? Before it was just text. It told me what this button does. Now I have to look up an icon. Like, what the...
Yeah.
You know?
And it doesn't really help because like like the text is really important for people. I don't know if you can hover over them if they tell you that.
You can
or-
hover over them, but it's like...
It's more work,
like,
yeah.
It's such a pointless thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta waste 2 seconds of my life. Like, this is important time for me, my life. Okay, you're stealing my time away because I have to hover my mouse over an icon to figure out what it does.
Yeah, even mobile apps, like sorry, mobile UIs, they show you what icons and stuff do in that context. Like
Like
you go
2
on,
second, like it isn't long, right? But it adds up if you gotta keep doing that over and
Yeah.
over and over and over. And you just get so annoyed.
yeah. And I don't know about how performance is doing. I've been told that things have been changing for the better in terms of Windows 11 performance with games and things like that. But ultimately, there's still like a huge list of things that are still not doing very well and whatnot.
I think
Um,
11 is less bloated than 10, though. I think it has less of an impact.
I mean, that's hard to say because like both of them are really bloated. That's true. Like if you install Windows
Yeah.
10, like a fresh copy, it gives you Candy Crush, it gives you TikTok, it gives you all sorts of other nonsense. Like, look, if you use those things, all the power to you. But it shouldn't be a default install on a computer. Like
Yeah.
the default install on a computer should be, you know, give us Windows Media Player, which by the way, I'm pretty sure they're removing that, right?
That's
The report.
Ah,
Like-
hell no, dude. I miss Windows Media Player.
Yeah. That fucking Groove Player. Oh god, I hate that thing. Sorry, that thing is.
Okay, I ironically used Groove Music for a while because I didn't have Spotify Premium.
Well, I mean, the thing is, right? Like they threw on the Groove Player and then they like pretty much sidelined the Windows Media Player, still giving it some like minor updates, I guess. But like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. In all honesty, I don't care about either of those two because I just use VLC, so like I couldn't be bothered.
Yo, VLC's gaming, dude.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you know, you've got oh, you used to have a Windows Movie Maker back in the day.
Oh,
they fucking
wow.
got rid of that. And
Miss
that's,
Movie Maker.
you know, there's just so many things that I think they cut off that people needed, and they added things that people don't need.
There's
And
one nice thing that I like about
Don't want Copilot?
yeah,
is that the so on the far left there's like a button that opens up a big menu. It shows all the news, market, and games, and
oh that like the overview.
get the overview.
So
I kind of enjoy the overview.
So my opinion on it is, I guess I'm not the target audience of that overview. I'll be honest. Mainly because, at least to my knowledge, like I feel like an overview of that kind is just a bit too much information drop for me. Like you know, and I know you could probably like attune it to your taste. Like you could remove news and things and make it show only gaming news. You know, make it a little bit different. But I think ultimately for me, I just if I need to tweak those things, I would probably just go ahead and search them manually myself just to go and see what I need to see. Again, all power to you if you think that's useful to you. I think on default it should be off personally.
I like it because I just like to skim over a lot of things to see what's happening in the world.
Yeah,
And that's it. And then
yeah, and it's
So,
fair because
kind of nice.
I think like what I think is like that summary is better than you know the Edge browser always showing a summary of like everything that's going on. I would rather that one. The Edge browser's one is actually worse, but the other thing too is that again that's another thing too. The whole other can of worms is the Edge browser and how like you know it's just a Chromium based browser that's like more bloated than Chrome. It's so much more bloated than Chrome.
I think it's really interesting when I'm sure everyone else has experienced this with Windows 11, but when I was installing Chrome on my sister's new computer, so she uses her Chrome apps. The first thing it does is it tries to actually block you from accessing Google.com or any sort of Google like installers. And sure enough, when you finally get to it, it tries to flag it and say, "Hey, this is malicious. This is you know, Edge's better." And you have to, it's like trying to choose the no tip option on Uber Eats. It's
Oh, yeah.
impossible.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's really weird. Like I always noticed that too. I was like, why is it warning me? Oh, you're already on the fastest browser. It's like it's honestly it's kind of like a coping thing. I understand like Chrome isn't the best browser. I only okay. I'm just gonna say right now the only reason why I use Chrome is because it's the only browser right now that makes it so when I'm watching YouTube videos while I'm playing Minecraft with Irish shaders, it doesn't lag. I don't know why. Every single other browser lags while I'm using Minecraft with Irish shaders. So, again, if you are some sort of Firefox zealot or Brave zealot, whatever, I've tried all of those. Trust me, they're all having issues. I don't know why. Again,
Real.
ask AMD. Ask one of those people. Someone in the room is someone in the room of those tech like companies are involved with why that's happening. Also, like, to add on, I never had that issue with Optifine, but I'm having a different issue with Optifine. Don't want to derail too much, just want to add that on. I'm not like some sort of Chrome zealot. I technically still use Opera GX for a lot of things, and that's also Chromium based. Would I switch to Brave or Firefox? Probably, but I don't know. Like, to me right now, it's not the biggest deal. I don't think like browser wars is kind of a waste of time. I do think that the Edge browser is substantially more bloated because like I use it for work and I notice like when I'm using the Edge browser there's like a left side that's full of random crap and there's a right side that's now full of like Copilot and other random crap. I'm just like this is just so much bloat. Like they need to just load like this. It reminds me of like those old, have you ever used those old browsers where there's like 1,000 extra toolbars that you could download? Oh man, I remember one time as a kid, I tried to download every single toolbar that I could on a browser just to see how it looked.
Wow.
That was fun.
Don't understand. I need that apps.com toolbar.
Oh my god, dude, that was that was a time period. Honestly, there's something nostalgic about that time period. Like it was shit. Like that the toolbar stacking was so shit. But there's something nostalgic about like how shit some of that stuff was. Like it was like a whole different, like the Frutiger Arrow time period was like it looked so amazing, like the aesthetics were so cool, but like the performance and efficiency around that time was so dog shit that people forgot. People honestly, like, the rose tinted glasses thing is real. Like it's people forgot all that stuff was just so crap.
It was like pure garbage, but we loved it because
It did our job and it was fine. And honestly, the bloat was our fault a lot of the time. That was what it was. Like if you got bloat, it was because you tried to download free Punjabi movie in 480p. Let's be real, right? Like you tried to download something that you weren't supposed to download, and you got bloated. That honest to God, that's what I think. Frutiger Arrow is still amazing. That era, again, sometimes I do wish I could get a glimpse of the past of a computer. It's just, I can't stress this enough. Please, 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 please. I know you want to do this, but do not connect a Windows 7 computer to your network. You will probably get your
I'm gonna connect a Windows 7 computer to my network.
because
You can't stop me.
You will get your credit card stolen. And if they don't steal your credit card, they'll steal something from you. I don't know, man.
I've seen.
There's a lot of botnets out there. I'm just, again, me personally, I'm not doing that. If you do that, it's all on your discretion. My advice, don't do it unless you know what you're doing. Like, unless you know for a fact there's nothing important on your network, or it's inside of a virtual machine or something. That's pretty much it. Beyond that, like, I just cannot stress it enough. It's too risky. It's just, that's how it is.
Well, at least Windows 11 is better than Windows Vista.
Well, I guess we'll have to figure that one out. I'm not sure. Again, me personally, Windows Vista was, see, the reason why nowadays I can actually defend Windows Vista is because I started to learn the reason why it was struggling, and it was because hardware at the time didn't actually catch up for Windows Vista to actually work correctly. That's why Windows Vista was so bad. Whereas now Windows 11 is bad because of bloatware, so, which is a different problem. So I don't know. Like, both are bad for different reasons. Windows Vista in some ways just needed more time in the oven as well. Like, there was just other issues with the operating system, as well as, like, you know, just some silly things no one really needed. Like, where's widgets gone? Like, you know what's funny is we don't have widgets or anything like that anymore. And to be honest, a part of me still kind of misses that. Like, that was one of the things I kind of thought was kind of quirky in a way, and I didn't really mind it that much. I thought it was kind of funny. You have those little widgets that like show you your CPU clock or something. Like, I don't know. It just
those are fun.
Those are kind of fun, quirky little things. But yeah, like, you know, that's the only thing I had to say about Vista. So if you guys don't mind, do you guys want to add anything to that? I just want to read the article here about Windows 10.
Well, I was just
You're
gonna
the one
say,
that's desktop.
one major thing people have issues with is the like hardware requirements and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just special or whatnot, but I've never had to deal with that.
Yeah, it's
Even on
depends.
like my super old AMD R6 laptop, I managed to get Windows 11 on it.
It's a thing where it's like if you have the trusted platform module thing, it will work. If you don't, then
It doesn't.
I don't know, honestly. Like what I've heard is you can't do it without the TPM support whatnot, but apparently you can. You have to do a bunch of stuff. I don't know. To be honest, I'm gonna be dead honest with you. I don't care because I'm not upgrading any old computers to Windows 11. I think what will happen is any of those old computers will probably just cease to remain on my network. They will just have an intranet connection, probably, like inside of just household. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's what I added here, the articles. So basically, Windows 10 support is going to be October 14, 2025. So that is a year from now, right? That's when Windows 10 support ends. Microsoft also is going to start charging $30 for additional years, a year of security updates for Windows 10. So you don't have to pay for those, but you will be vulnerable if you don't. So that's what's going to happen. So each computer, $30 a year.
That's pretty messed up, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, they never had done this before. This isn't the first time they're doing this. The extended security updates. I mean, okay, I say that it might not be true, but it's still. This is the first time I've heard it publicly being announced in this way, and they're basically doing this rug pull now, and it's just like, wait, hold on. Now we really have to go to Windows 11? Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
we don't want to go to Windows 11. Like, this is very, very much a forced rug pull. And not to mention that, you know, the speculations that we're getting for Windows 12, the leaks, the rumors, I don't know. I just don't think people want to jump from one Windows to another, and then you know, some people actually saying it's not going to be called Windows 12, but they're looking at you know, Windows 11 being turned into a potential subscription service. And this is like, honestly, the moment where I just think we need to support Linux operating systems, and I'm so proud of Valve for picking Linux for the Steam Deck. And in all honesty, I think it was a choice based on efficiency, right? Valve picked Linux for their Steam Deck because they wanted maximum efficiency. They wanted the least amount of bloat. What are they going to pick? Well, they're going to pick the operating system that has next to no bloat. The one that, doesn't like the one that you can set up specifically as you want it, as you can get it, right? So that's the reason why they picked you know, that Steam Deck operating system, which is a fork of what was it, Arch Linux.
I
Right.
think it's an interesting point too, because if you look at the, I think it's the Asus ROG Ally.
Yep.
It's the new their handheld.
Yep.
It runs Windows, which I mean to me was like, for me I wanted a Windows handheld for my Windows applications, but at the same time it comes with Windows 11, so that totally throws me off from actually even wanting the product in the first place. Yeah, I could go and get Windows 10 for it, but I think that's going to turn away a lot of customers and push them towards going for a Steam Deck, because it's like, you know what, it just works.
And really, the only thing that Linux is being like in the gaming industry, the only thing that Linux is getting sandbagged by is all to do with competitive gaming, because and anti-cheat, right?
Yeah.
Anti-cheat is almost entirely competitive gaming. So Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex, and a couple others that have very strong anti-cheats, right? And when I say very strong, I don't mean they're very effective, okay? Let's be real. They are barely effective. They get bypassed all the time. What I'm trying to say is more that these companies have these heavy anti-cheats. These are their rules, and Linux can't really abide by them because, well, Linux doesn't want you installing a kernel level, anti-cheat. And not to mention the fact that if you try to circumvent it by using an emulator, you can be banned because that's against their terms of service. So in all reality, it's like Linux has this problem where they can't just get that to work. Like the coders of the kernel level anti-cheat, I believe they'd have to code a whole different thing for each Linux distribution or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Now, the only possibility I see for it working is maybe if SteamOS specifically tries to make some sort of way in, I don't know, let's just say they actually allow you to install that, so you can have kernel level anti-cheat that goes through the SteamOS, and it lets you actually have that. I don't know how that would work. I don't know how much how many different agreements they'd have to make that happen. But hey, if that happens, then maybe. But otherwise, I think that there is for competitive games on the Steam Deck on Linux, I just think there's no future. But for all other gaming, if you don't care about playing those couple of games I mentioned, plus a couple other games that are competitive and or have anti-cheat that are really strong, that are also basically kernel level, which is a huge list of games, by the way, that is supported by the Steam Deck. Like I'm talking about the Steam Deck. It's funny because the other day was like, I wonder if I could install XTSIx on the Steam Deck, and I was like, yeah, let's try this out. Let's open up Epic Games Launcher. Oh wow, it works. And I thought that was really weird because I was like, I'm expecting it not to work, but it works. And the reason why is because, well, when you don't have those major kernel level anti-cheats, it lets you actually install it. You can actually use it, and it's fine. It runs pretty decently. I did have one crash, but I mean, to be honest, I didn't really play that much of XTSIx on the Steam Deck. I just don't really play it very often.
Speaking
But
of crashes,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to leave the call.
yeah, no worries.
No worries.
So, thank you all for the chat.
Yeah, no worries.
I don't
I
know.
You
learned
take
a
care,
lot.
Tyler.
They're staying.
Yeah.
All right. So just to kind of wrap up the Steam Deck though. Excuse me, just one moment. What I think is there is a huge future for gaming on Linux. It's just not going to be competitive based. And to be honest, I feel like that might be why it becomes the more chill gaming option. Like the person that doesn't want to play too much competitive games is going to stick with the Steam Deck, is really going to love it. And I really hope that's what it's going to be, that you're going to get those options. It's gonna really build up that market, and maybe one day you get, you know, companies that end up making some deals and letting you play some of those competitive games, at least parts of those competitive games that are not competitive, you know, just for a Steam Deck. Like, you know, it's great that, like, you know, we don't really have to worry about some of the software that's already like in good hands with Steam, like the anti-cheat software, like the Halo ones and whatnot, right? Those ones are all working on the Steam Deck, so it's good to see that there's some things that work. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think if Linux wants to get a mainstream market kind of what is it? A mainstream market like a share, like mainstream market share, it needs to be like it needs to be straightforward and easy for the end user to install. Because when you install like any Linux distro right now, you'll get through the install process, which is pretty straightforward, which is great. They've been pretty well about this recently. After you install it, it'll ask you, hey, do you want to update your repos? Do you want to update your kernel or whatever? And it's like the average user isn't going to know what that means. And not only that, but to install any like software on Linux, you have to go through like the user repository, the official repositories, right? Using commands and stuff. If we don't have to use commands, you can actually use tarballs, which are effectively zip files for Linux. But you still have to use like commands to install them. From last time I checked. I think to install software on Linux, it needs to be a lot more straightforward and casual. Like, no average user should have to open a terminal and look up commands that could potentially break their system if they don't know what they're doing. To actually be able to use the operating system. That's why I think.
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say that's why I think Windows will always have a place, even if it like goes to shit.
Well, I mean, in all reality, right? I do appreciate the amount of Linux users that definitely want to educate the average user on how to, you know, work around the in-depths of, you know, computing and operating systems and installation and things like that. But I do want to say that there's always going to be, like, the average user is just going to expect, you know, a ecosystem where they don't really have to do much and everything gets done for them. And to be honest, I have to agree with the average user in most cases, because, you know, when we just want to use an operating system on its own, right? We're not talking about, you know, being a power user or anything like that. We're talking about getting back from a hard days of work, okay? You know, for me, I'm a guy who's in tech, so it doesn't matter anyways, but for some other people, you know, maybe out there who just, you know, they're working a hard day of work, they come back to their computer, and, you know, then they've got extra work to do just to get, you know, a couple of very basic things done. Like, I feel like, you know, and just telling them that, oh, you're just, you know, you're just lazy, you're not searching up the commands, or you're not learning. It's like, well, not everyone wants to learn every single day, every minute of their life, and some people work very, very, you know, difficult jobs, things like that, you know, and even if they don't, like, it doesn't matter. I think that everyone has the right to, you know, have the easiest solution to things. Do I think that, you know, the educational part of it is important? Of course. I think if you educate yourself on how those inner things of a computer work, it will make you, you know, a lot more attentive to those details. It'll also make you better at troubleshooting yourself, and you will have less, like, that will create an impact in the way where you won't have to keep, you know, getting support, bugging people for support, and people overall will just get better at it. But then again, that's just happening over time. Like, you know, the next generation of people using, you know, phones and computers and stuff, like, honestly, it's crazy, because, like, people ask me about mobile phone things, and I'm like, dude, I'm a computer guy, not a mobile phone guy. I could try and help you with mobile phone stuff, but trust me, like, when I'm sitting down with a phone, it's just like clickety click on this button. If it doesn't work, then clickety click on that button and see if it works. Like, I can't open up okay, you can technically open up a terminal on a phone. I know, but it's not as easy. It's annoying, and it's like, you know, the phone is not the same as the computer in that manner, right? It just works it's a completely different beast, and to be honest, like, that's the reason why, you know, that's just what's gonna happen over time. Like, you'll get people who'll get more used to computers, like me, and then people who are more used to phones, like the next generation, and then so on and so forth. So, either way, like, I personally think that at the end of the day, you know, I think we will get a lot better Linux support for things over time. It will take some time. I think people will you know, embrace the changes. It's just a matter of Linux and companies just making those deals, and they will, because Steam Deck made a huge mark on the market, and even though a lot of people are you know, running for the wrong ally now because of the Windows support, you know, Windows 11 is turning some people back, but it's also, you know, the ease of use. Like, Windows operating system on a gamepad system, like, it's not really made for that. And Windows 8 at least had some touchscreen support, even if it was not great. But like, Windows 11 is basically not really made for touchscreen. So, you know, I just think that it's gonna be like Windows gamepads are fighting an uphill battle against the already set Steam Deck and other gamepads that just, you know, are gonna end up using like Linux distros and such. So
And yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like, so as someone who uses Linux, Windows, Android, I I understand, you know, from both sides. People like, oh, you know, Linux should be everywhere. But then I understand from the point of there is no reason for, you know, Linux in its current state to be needed, because, you know, I find Linux is really good for very specific tasks. Example being like Proxmox is my overhead servers.
yeah,
I think for the average person, it is a lot to compile, and even making basic changes through the console is not easy. You know, I never used it before, and it it's a handful. So I understand why it's, you know, I wouldn't recommend it to somebody, but at the same time, you know, for the features that you can use it for, like literally being able to just decompile the entire operating system and do anything that you could possibly imagine, you could do with Linux, versus Microsoft might have, or sorry, is going to have a less, let's call it straightforward path. I don't really have any good examples for that. Actually, no, I guess like a very basic one would be like, if I need to change the, let's say, the local IP for one of my servers, all I have to do is plug a keyboard into that server, log into log into the console, and it's just a single line of code. That's it. With Windows, I believe it's a little bit more complicated. You got to go through some processes. I haven't really done it on a Windows machine, so I can't say. But
control
point
panel.
being, yeah,
And then
point
not
being,
to mention there's other things too, yeah.
there's a lot more
Well,
to it.
to be
So,
fair, on Linux, it is kind of similar. There's a lot of other things you have to change. I mean, to be honest, it's the same. It's just that Windows has a UI. Linux does it more with what's it called, like command. It depends. It depends which Linux distro again.
Yeah,
That's also
I-
another thing. Like, they can all be different. Anyways, do you guys have anything else to add in on Windows 11, Windows 12, or Linux?
Windows 11, don't buy it.
I hope.
Joke's on you, I didn't.
I really hope that, you know, the Windows 10 end of life gets extended or something. I really do not want to deal with Windows 12. Sorry, Windows 10 end of life gets extended. I don't want to deal with Windows 11, and I really don't want to deal with Windows 12, aka the subscription-based Windows. man, if the subscription based stuff starts, it's really gonna suck. It's gonna suck for everyone. And I honestly think that that's probably gonna be that one major push I might have to go to Linux for. And it sucks because, you know, if I go to Linux, that means no more Call of Duty, no more Fortnite, no more you know, any other game that has kernel level H cheat, and that's a huge amount of games. So I don't know, like I could maybe just have
Yeah,
a computer that just does that, and you know, main computers on Linux. I don't know. I honestly don't know what else I can do about that. So
I could live with that.
what?
I could live with. I kind of like lately. I don't play a lot of games anymore. I like play the same like 3 games or whatever. So
I mean,
like,
if I really had to, and I'll say this right now, if I really had to, other than a couple other games that I just play for fun, like I could quit all of those games that use kernel level anti-cheat, and the only game I'd be playing is just Minecraft, so I could just build my city, and that's it.
But at
So
what cost?
So-
there, honestly, dude, if someone told me that was the only choice I had is have any amount of the infinitesimal games to play or just work on my city, I would work on my city. That's all I do. That is I mean, for me that's my everything. So anyways, that
Yeah.
would conclude the
can't wait.
Sorry, go on.
Just say one last parting words. I can't wait to move back to Linux. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so now we get to the last topic, and I know this one's not going to be too long since you guys hadn't actually watched the Star Citizen demo, which is fine. I will describe kind of what I saw so that you guys get an idea of what I'm talking about, right? Um, Understandably, it's going to translate a little oddly because it's going to be basically you guys are going to take what I saw, my opinion, and have to make some conclusions from that. Except, really, I'm talking about Irius and Brock because Epic has seen this one. So, the topic here is that Star Citizen released a new kind of demo on their new gameplay. Not gameplay. I'm sorry. Their new engine, right? And to be honest, like I wasn't really that blown away by it. I thought it was cool, but I didn't think it was so good that like, you know, I was like mind blown by it. So, one of the things I'll say is that, you know, they started off, you know, showing us the atmosphere, the light scattering, the clouds of the planets in the game. So if you're wondering, Brock, I don't know if you know much about Star Citizen,
Not
but
really.
um, long story short, it's a game that's been in development for over, I think, what, 20 years? Um,
Jeez.
and it has
20 years does not sound right. Yeah.
yeah, and I should look that up. I actually don't know how many years exactly. It's a lot. Okay, I was like still in elementary school when they were working on this game.
And it's expensive.
Oh yeah, it's a super expensive game. Like they've been throwing money at it like no tomorrow. I've heard something upwards to like what, $200 million. I mean,
Wow.
you know what's
Nah,
crazy
I
is
had their funding page earlier. It's like 735 mil.
735 mil. Well, you know what? One thing I will give them right now, I think, you know what's funny? It's that we come off the light news that, you know, not light news, it's terrible news that Skull and Bones spent like $700 million on their game, right? We come off that news and we're talking about Star Citizen using the same amount, and at least they're putting in effort. So you know what? A little bit of congrats to you. You're doing a lot more work than Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones literally burned that money. Like, how do you burn $700 million and do like the shittiest pirate game of all time? Anyways, so I will explain what's going on in this trailer. So you had, you know, atmospheres. You had a showcase of like a city. In my opinion, the city does look somewhat impressive. It doesn't look that bad, but I am a little bit curious as to knowing like how much of this city you actually can interact with. You know, and it looked a little like enclosed. Like it looked a little small. Like it felt like you couldn't really, like it wasn't sprawling. Like you know, one thing I would expect is, you know, we've got a city, you've got like sprawls of residential and other stuff. Now maybe that's just because I'm used to, like, you know, the North American way of like, hell yeah, we got thousands of residential areas all around the city. But at the same time, like, you know, I feel like those current elements would still be reflected in, you know, future cities. That's my opinion. Um, so as they kind of go through, they show that it's like dense character locations. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of the amount of crowds in the game. I just don't care enough about crowds. I think they should focus more on making interesting characters in there instead of like trying to fill them up with pointless NPCs. And if they do that, then try and make it like almost like a river of NPCs that are just, you know, like, you know, you just go through them kind of thing. Like they don't need to have a super unique set of things to them. You know what I mean? Like you could optimize all of them down to like very, very basic components. Unless interacted with, then maybe that's when it like transforms or something, right? And then you've got, you know, they showed this ocean, which was kind of cool, but like again, nothing too crazy. So the ship interiors. So I guess that's kind of cool. Like the ship interiors are really nice. You can actually walk around inside of your ships in the game. Again, that's something we could do with our freighters in No Man's Sky, but you know, it's this one. It's like you could do it while it's moving or whatever. I guess that's kind of cool. But I don't know. Like I feel like, you know, that's also something that I don't know how much you have to pay for, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the first ship where you can actually walk around in the game costs what? Like at least $100 to get of real money, right?
Yeah.
That's a really steep price point, right? $100 of real money just to like be in your own ship. Again, I might eat my words and I might end up trying it out just because, like, it does look impressive. But I'm really struggling to support this project because when you have ships at real life price points being given to you, like being not given to you, but being like basically shown to you, like they're saying you gotta pay $1,000 of real money for a ship in the game, and people have thrown in like I think $50,000 on virtual ships. I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah, I have a friend who only briefly played it, but still spent I think $7,000.
yeah,
What the fuck,
yeah. Like,
dude?
honestly, if I spent $7,000, I expect to commission someone to design me an entire ship to use in the game.
Yeah.
Expect my name and like fucking
like
credits.
commission. No. Commission to the spec, as in I tell them what I want. That's what should be happening. And in fact, actually, that would be one of their solutions, is to give us options where we can commission a ship for the game to our spec. Maybe that might be a little more on the side of doable, I guess, right?
Oh.
I'm not defending that. I still think it's a lot, but like that's like the closest I can get to like being like, okay, maybe there's an option there. But that is such a ridiculous amount of money, right? 7,000, 10,000. It's just too much. I understand some people are passionate about space games. They really want to support this company. They really want to see the future of this game. But as Epic just said, the friend of his played the game for whatever much time and didn't really play it again, and that's saying something, right?
Oh, very said that.
To me, I see, that, and then I think, well, No Man's Sky, I'm just gonna say on the high end is $30. You get all of that. You can walk around on your freighters, customization.
No,
and you know what? I mean, there's probably more to.
So the thing is, I do want to add, like, see, the thing about No Man's Sky that like makes it beat Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous, in my opinion, is the fact that while Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous have so much more depth in them, Elite Dangerous has a little bit more depth. Star Citizen has a shit ton more depth. Like, there's so much different things you can do with that game. The problem is, it's probably not as fun as No Man's Sky. When you boot up No Man's Sky, like, most people are enjoying the game as they boot it up and go through the different things they gotta go through in the game. There's more interesting things to do in that game. In this game, all I'm hearing about people is, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. It's like a chore. It's like,
Do a second job?
yeah. And to be honest, like, what it is all about is this vision that Robert, I can't remember his whole full name, but Robert's vision is something that I just can't see that is this vision being put in front of me in the most what's it called? Sorry, I really forgot the word, but it's the word where it's like the opposite. Like, it's not that he's disingenuous. It's that I don't think it's the best light. That, you know, he's got all these like ships you can buy for so much money, right? It gives his vision a really bad image. It really does. It, like, because I think his image is good. I think the game looks good. I think his interests are good. I think the things that he works on are good on this game. But why in the world would you want a passion project to be fueled by so much hunger for money? And to be honest, like, you know, it's one of those things where, honestly, I don't know if it's really worth it to, like, you know, keep burning through more money for the project. I just, like, and I get it, like, you know, they're using it better than Skull and Bones, but still, it's like, you know, I don't know. So I'm gonna continue through with what's in the trailer, just before I continue ranting. Sorry. Again, they showed some of the terrain. The terrain is pretty nice. It looks pretty good. They have subterranean locations. I honestly thought it was kind of funny because the first thing I thought of, oh, No Man's Sky has that. Honestly, a lot of things I said that too. The subterranean locations thing, they showed like a couple of mushrooms underground, and I was like, that's it? Like, No Man's Sky has a lot more than that. And to be honest, like, maybe they didn't show much in this trailer, but it wasn't really that impressive. Good on them though to at least try and make some caves and stuff. And then they showed some of the rivers and the actual terrain, the terrain tessellation hardware. And then they showed planetary winds. And they said driving physics simulation. It's funny because they said that and they didn't even show any exocraft or any cars or anything driving. Then they showed like the dynamic ecosystem generation for flora and fauna. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really know what they mean by that entirely. I guess it just means they're gonna try to generate the ecosystem that they work by, but I don't see anything where it says that the the fauna, or the flora are randomly generated and or like actually generated, like the flora and fauna itself. I personally think it's not, because like the models for the fauna look pretty decent, and they don't look like, you know, how No Man's Sky has done it. And No Man's Sky has a lot of practice, but it still looks like it's randomly generated, right? Like,
Yeah.
it looks very funky. But to be honest, I have not seen a single creature in No Man's Sky where the polygons out of its generation have broken to the point where, like, you know, the creature looks straight up glitched. Like, I've never seen that. Like, have you ever seen that once in No Man's Sky out of any of your guys' playthroughs? I've
No,
never
not
seen
at
one.
all.
Not a
Like, I've-
single one where the polygons are, like, broken. You know what I mean?
Like, I've seen some like really kind of like, and I mean mildly messed up terrain generation, but the creatures after they had like the issues after release, I think they really ironed it out, to be honest.
I
And
mean,
haven't-
even during release, their creatures were just, like, none of them were, like, actually broken. They were
yeah,
just...
they,
They were
like,
just really
weird.
silly and really, like, low quality when it released. But now it's, like, pretty decently nice. I think what
Yeah.
they need, though, in that game is more hostile creatures. They need
Oh,
way more.
absolutely.
They added a couple more. I'm really happy about that. There's, like, a whole queen thing. You can, like, dude, they've got things that look like Doom in that game. Like, it's looking fire, dude. Or not Doom, sorry, like the Zerg. Like, I'm down, dude.
Yeah.
No Man's Sky Zerg update would go so hard. That would be fire. Anyways, that like yeah. So the fault was one thing I had a concern about. And then as we go on, we have the generation rendering of volumetric clouds again. So one thing you'll notice in this little showcase that they had is they kept talking about the clouds, subspace scattering, like just stuff about shaders and clouds, over and over again. And I was like, look, I get it. Your clouds look nice in this game, right? Your engine is very nice for clouds, but please, you only need to mention it once. Please don't mention it 8 times in the video. It gets a little annoying. And in all honesty, what that signals to me is that your vision is focused on like just this like I guess you could say this top layer. And you know what? It's a great metaphor for what they're focused on. They're focused on the top layer. The top layer of the look at the beautiful clouds, But what's underneath, right? You've got a cave with some mushrooms. You've got maybe one creature that might have just been modeled in, not generated. You've got some forests and stuff. I mean, the terrain generation doesn't look too bad. But again, you need to make lots of these terrains. You got to make all different types of different things. You got to make like just look at our own solar system. There's so many cool different worlds and stuff out there. Like those moons of Jupiter, you have like 5 or 6 different terrains out there that you could take some inspiration from, right? And in this preview, I can tell you they only showed like 2, right? Or 3, sorry. There was a gas giant, which was cool. I'll get to that. So so they showed the seamless transition from ground to space. Again, No Man's Sky has done that. They show a wormhole, and then they show space-based point of interest, which is cool. And then they show the gas giant, which was cool. So there's a gas giant city that they went to. And then there was this cool little part where they had basically flying creatures. I'm just trying to find what they said about it. It was kind of cool though. But again, like No Man's Sky has giant flying creatures too. Again, I'm not trying to rag on this game for being too similar to No Man's Sky. It's just that like a lot of this stuff is like not really that innovative. It's just pieces of tech that have existed for a while and they're just kind of getting to added onto themselves. And then they go through another wormhole and they come to this other system where you've got it looks like a pirate system. It looked kind of cool to see that. Again, it's kind of funny because they've got like space pirates that don't even look that like. I guess obviously they just have a bunch of people with tattoos and stuff. They're showing the skin shaders with blemish, freckles, and tattoo layers, and I'm just thinking in here like, hey man, I'm sorry to tell you this, but there are video game mods that have done this level of quality, in fact probably higher, in older engines like the Creation engine. Ages ago. I don't want to be that guy, but that's just how things are, like they're just playing catch up with everyone else. So again, skin quality is a whole other thing. Again, I don't know how far they want to go with things like that. And then you've got a pirate planet, which is where they show a ship burning down, and the fire system in this game is dynamic fire simulation based on voxel grid, so kind of like Minecraft Fire, right? And then basically they show after they show the ship, they show another bit of terrain, and then they get to show like another like point of interest that they basically say it's like streaming object container technology for outpost point of interest. So basically, long story short, it's like they're trying to like package it up and make it so when you get to a point of interest, like it streams it correctly, kind of like how in No Man's Sky, when you get to a point of interest, like it just appears. Again, I'm sorry, that's just what's happening because that's just the one that did it before, and there's other games that have done it before No Man's Sky. I understand that. It's just the one that I know of is No Man's Sky, and I'm mentioning it because that's the game that I think is the most fun space game, and it's done it pretty well. So, yeah, and then they had the water effects. They did show destruction physics. So here's my thoughts on the destruction physics. I think what they showed was just like some stone temple getting shot at and parts of it breaking off, which is cool. But think about it this way: they show all these cities and things. Why not show us a little more than just shooting at a bunch of stone? Why not shoot at one of those giant city buildings in the game and show how it looks like when you blow one of those up, right?
I don't know if you've seen it, but they did show off like a boss fight that they were showing off, and they showed like it had a lot of gaming and stuff like that, which was interesting.
Oh, okay. But I will be honest though. Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say I couldn't really find it because it was like a 4-hour stream and I didn't want to scroll through all of it.
Yeah, no worries. And to be honest, like I think they have the capability to do that. It's just I don't know how much of this stuff is like preset stuff you can destroy, kind of like Levolutions in Battlefield, or if they're like Battlefield 2 Bad Company, which is what we want for destruction. In my opinion, if you are somebody who deals with destruction physics in a video game, your goal should be to reach the level of Battlefield 2 Bad Company. That is the greatest destruction physics in a game that has ever existed. Ever. Like, in my opinion, that is the goal. The reason why is because, to be honest, like, any more realistic destruction, people are not really going to expect it, but people are looking at what has been done in the past, and that's the one that people are going to run to describe what they want for destruction physics. And that's what I was going to say too. It's like, you add that level, you can destroy anything in the map, in those cities, whatever, right? Like, imagine you could actually go down, you and your buddies, and start a war against that city. Like that city they showed in the beginning. You just drop down and you start like dropping missiles on one of those like futuristic buildings. Like, just imagine like how cool that would be. But of course, I understand it's not all just going to happen at once. There are some boundaries. There are some ways that they'll have to make things work. Ultimately, can't just go and have people destroy the spawn point. But hey, it's cool to speculate. The thing is that, I mean, a lot of this is just like stuff that is on a wish list. So yeah, I'm just scrolling through to see if there's anything else I missed in here. They showed that there's dynamic sweat and real-time cloth simulation. Again, those have been there in a lot of games. I don't want to be an asshole and say that, it's not impressive. It is cool. It's just like, that's not really like adding that much more. Like the sweat that they were showing was like didn't even look that impressive. And I don't know why the guy was honestly, it's kind of funny in the little demo they show us. They show this guy walking out, and they're like, "Oh, this guy is sweating because his little stone temple got fucking shot at." And like, I'm just thinking in my head, like, what? I don't know.
Who actually cares about those details, though? I mean, some people do, but like, I think if you're in the middle of like, you're I don't know, in combat, I don't think people are going to be looking like, oh, that character is starting to sweat. Oh, his I don't know, his eyebrows are showing in a different expression.
They literally showed the sweat, and I don't know, it just didn't look that impressive.
It's got the same energy of when Activision, or what was it? It was Infinity Ward showing off the fish AI for COD Ghosts. Guys, look, the fish AI.
The fish AI was embarrassing. So I think all in all, like the technology that they showed in the Star Engine is cool. It's good. It's a show that people have been putting into money, and things are working, things are being built. But is it enough that like right now Star Citizen is like a bag of cool ingredients, but no one has created the the meal yet? Like it's like it's not even, the cooking hasn't really started, right? And that, I think that's the biggest problem. Like, yes, boss fights and some stuff exists, but it's from what I'm understanding, it's few and far in between. There's too many annoying things to deal with before you even get to some of the cool stuff in the game. And I think Star Citizen is going to have the same issue as Elite Dangerous had, which is accessibility. If you don't give the player the ability to, you know, go out and do things on their own and figure out things like, what's it called? Okay, I need to read that. I'm sorry. It's not really like do things on their own, go out and do like that type of ability. What I mean is like you want to make sure the player understands that, like, you know, this is a game where they can follow a line of things and they can get things accomplished. Hence why when you play No Man's Sky, it doesn't take long for you to, you know, figure out some of the stuff and get it right? So that's why I think, like, you know, this game has a lot more of, oh, you gotta figure out this, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Like Elite Dangerous had that, and that was the problem I have with that game. And I think this game might have the same issue. Like the first time player isn't gonna have, you know, a experience where, you know, you're just gonna like go in and be right in the middle of, you know, exploring space willy-nilly. You know what it is? I think what my issue with it is that it wants to treat it like this MMO, but like a gritty MMO, like a realistic MMO kind of thing. But I think what it should have done, in my opinion, is treated it more like, you know, No Man's Sky, because the reality part of things bore people. That's what it is. The reality of reality is that it bores people. Like that's why what's it called? Starfield didn't do as well because people just got bored. So I think that Star Citizen is having that issue as well. Like, you know, look at Epic's friend, put that much money into the game and won't even touch it. And you know, I think that's an important lesson. You know, there's too much work to get to A to B, to do this, to do that, like, you know, to fight that boss or to do something else in that universe. Ultimately, my take on Star Citizen is, I'm sorry, but it still hasn't reached the mark where I think it's worth me putting anybody into the game. Will I end up doing it in the future? I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I really don't want to put my own money into Star Citizen. I really don't. I want to avoid doing that at all costs. But at the same time, like, I think the graphical technology, the you know, the mechanics, and just the whole experience, I want to be able to get the entire experience so I could see if it changes my mind on things. It's just the vision for me, while it's a beautiful vision, it's one that is completely scarred and charred by the amount of monetary mishaps that exist for this brand. I just don't think it's worth it. But hey, someone else, a lot of other people disagree with me. At least the monetary amount of people who disagree with me is about $700 million worth of people. But hey, let's be real, okay? This is $750 million of people at least being used for this cause. Whereas in Skull and Bones, it wasn't used for shit. It was used for literally skull and bones on the ground.
So, that was the reaction I had when I saw that game, Skull and Crossbones.
Yeah.
Quadruple A gaming.
Like, and to be honest, Star Citizen's the only game that I think actually could mention to become the quadruple A game. It's just, it really shouldn't try to encompass everything in the universe. Try to get your players a easy A to B to C, and they will love the game. That's all there's to, like, that's why people like No Man's Sky more than Elite Dangerous, because the A to B to C is easy. It's not hard to go from, you know, getting your ship to getting a freighter to, you know, doing some missions, getting exocrafts, getting a base, and getting a colony. Like, those things are just not hard to do, and I really love No Man's Sky for that. But yeah, like, again, I don't want to say that I think, you know, I think that everyone should just get No Man's Sky instead of this game. I think people should make an informed decision what they like. But I can definitely tell you that the fun I've had with games like this, like Elite Dangerous, it's like very little compared to No Man's Sky. And I still stand by my statement that No Man's Sky is still the best space-based game since 2018.
Yeah.
So anyone want to add anything to that or ask anything about any of the different things in Star Citizen?
I was gonna say, which has been in development longer, No Man's Sky or Star Citizen?
I think Star
Our
Citizen, because No
Citizen
Man's
started
Sky.
like 10 years ago.
Yeah, so which it brings up a funny point because No Man's Sky had an awful launch as well.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
So well, the thing is, Star Citizen
Yeah.
is not.
But-
Is
Well, no,
not
but I'm
as
saying
launched.
since Star Citizen's been being developed longer, it's like it's kind of a disappointment comparatively.
I'm gonna
Oh,
hop
yeah.
off to go do some
Yeah.
Fortnite, but that was really good. It was really nice to be a part of that.
Yeah, no worries. We're
Alright.
almost wrapped up, so no worries. You can get going. I'll join you in a bit. But yeah, let's see if there's anything else for everyone else.
I managed to finish 4 papers while doing it.
Yeah, no worries. Anything
Goodness.
else you guys have on Star Citizen?
I hope when it comes out, it's actually good, and you know,
All I want
Like,
them
they
to do is give us a little bit of accessibility. Give the player, like, I know you don't want to just give the player God mode, okay? Like, I want creative mode, but I understand they won't give it to me. Okay, fine. At least give me a linear experience, at least a given linear experience that I can enjoy. That way,
I will say I'm
yeah.
predisposed to not enjoying space-based games. I have not had the best experiences, like exploration-wise.
Yeah, and
It's
to be
like-
honest, I don't mind exploring and going out and trying to figure out things in that way, but you need to have some linearity in these games. That's what I think. Like,
Yeah,
They
that's
are
what I was saying. Like
making
the
it
exploration stuff is fine, but like for example, Starfield's a good example. Is that it was just kind of empty and boring feeling when
Yeah.
in space.
yeah. And No
And then
Man's
same
Sky
with
has
No
gotten
Man's
a-
Sky is like while you were there wasn't much to do. I think they added like those derelict freighters and stuff like that, which was
Yeah,
kind of
they-
cool.
they
But
added-
elsewise, it was
they
kind of
added
just
a-
flying around.
Well,
doing
they've added a lot more stuff now. And to be honest, like, being in the middle of space in No Man's Sky is still kind of like, it's a thing that you just go around in a locale, go here and there. So it's not that exciting, but it's not bad either. It's a lot better than a lot of other games, for sure. That's what I think. It's better than Elite Dangerous, and from what I can tell, it's still better than Star Citizen.
I can't give any information elsewise on that because I've never played Elite Danger or Star Citizen.
Yeah. And to be fair, I've played Elite Dangerous. I haven't played Star Citizen. I've just seen, people talking about how it's played. It just doesn't seem like it's really nearly gone there. Is there anything else you want to add, Epic?
What is it? No, not much. I guess so. I hope Star Citizen just comes out well. I hope it actually, like I said earlier, I hope it surprises us when it
Yep.
comes out.
Okay,
And
if
I
they
said,
put a
you
ton
said
of
you
time
want
into it and it comes out like fully polished and complete, and it's like, oh, okay, this was worth everything. then sure.
Apparently, according to someone I was talking to, the game's been done for a while. They're just polishing it for like the last few years. I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, it's really the vision of the scope creep that's their issue, right? Like, they just want to like
Yeah.
encompass everything and more and more and more. So that's my take. Again, please Star Citizen, if anything, make the experience better for a lot of other users. I don't think I
Make
can
the
forgive them. Sorry?
Never mind.
I know in the Star Citizen universe, they are actually making a single player campaign.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard
Squadron
about that,
42.
which again, that sounded pretty cool too. But again, they need to get their focuses together for something like that. Like that, I think that would actually be
Yeah.
something worth going into for Star Citizen, for starters, anyways. Okay, so yeah, I think what I will say is that was a good podcast today. Again, I hope to do these monthly, so I don't know. I think we might have to push it a little longer than a month this time around because we've got some complications. That's okay. We will likely see you somewhere mid-December. But otherwise, hope you guys liked our conversations on these 3 different topics. Not too widely ranging. I mean, we start with CPUs and operating systems, and then just Star Citizen. But hopefully we'll get some other topics for next month. If you guys have some, please comment them down. We'll talk about them. Of course, with some exceptions, of course. We want to focus on the technical aspects, if anything. But yeah, thanks for joining in on the G4 podcast. See ya.